the outreach library. I'm the outreach librarian for Turner Free Library, and I am just going to be sort of backup support, tech support extraordinaire for Alexandra Bernson, who is the head law librarian at Brockton Law Library. And so I'm just going to turn it over to her because you know, she's the expert. So thank you so much for being here virtually with us tonight.
Of course, I'm so happy to be here. And just so everyone knows, we are recording this just for anybody who might not make it tonight. Just if you have your camera on or not, just so you know. But yes, hello. So happy to be here. My name is Alexandra Bernson. I'm the head law librarian at the Brockton Law Library. The Brockton Law Library is one of 15 law libraries in the Massachusetts trial court law library system. So we're all over the place, and we are here to assist you, members of the public, lawyers, judges, with legal information needs. So I might repeat myself a few times when I say that I am not a lawyer. I don't have a JD, which is the degree that lawyers have. I have not passed the bar. So I cannot provide you with legal advice on a one-to-one basis or tell you what to do in your situation. However, I can give you information. We can give you legal forms. We can give you samples of legal forms, information about different situations, and then you can make your decisions based on the information that we provide to you. So I might say that a couple times, but bear with me because sometimes, you know, especially with people who are coming in late, just to remind everyone. So, there are a ton of landlord-tenant laws in Massachusetts, and there are laws about so many different specific situations. There are so many different rights that either landlords or tenants have. And so today we're going to be discussing resources that you can use to help guide you if you're in a particular situation and you're not sure, hey, is this legal or illegal? Should I do something about this? Can I do something about this? So we'll talk about resources that you can use to find answers about that, and then also go over basic information about common issues like leases, getting repairs made, security deposits, eviction, things like that. So I'll go over what the library has very quickly, and then we'll get into some of these common issues. And then afterward, I'm so happy to answer any questions that you might have about either the issues or the libraries. But again, I cannot give legal advice on a particular situation. All right. So the first thing I wanted to mention is what we call our law about pages. So this is something that the trial court law libraries have created, and we maintain a minimum of like once a year, we review everything. So we, you know, to make sure that all the law is still good, to make sure that all the resources, there's no broken links, all the information is still relevant. And so this is all available on our website, which is mass.gov/lawlib. And don't worry, I'll have links and everything at the end of this presentation, so it's nice and easy for you. But as I mentioned, there's a ton of landlord-tenant law and housing court law. And the law about pages are organized by topic. So even within this very small section of law, there is a page regarding just general landlord-tenant, which has a ton of info, and we'll go over that in a second. We have an entire page about tenants in foreclosed buildings, which is commonly referred to as squatters' rights. And then we also have an entire page about eviction. So you can go on here, find any of these landlord-tenant pages. It doesn't even have to be landlord-tenant stuff. We have a page on backyard chickens. We have pages on bicycles and, you know, different kinds of family law and, you know, employment stuff. So there's a ton of information on the law about pages, and you can find that right on our website. So let's take a look at what a law about page kind of looks like. And all of them are going to have the same basic structure. So it's easy to find whatever you're looking for regarding that. So law about landlord and tenant, right? The first thing you'll see is that table of contents. We librarians love an index and a table of contents there. And the first thing, if we have one, we'll have a best bet. And that's kind of like a resource that is written for members of the public. It's available for everybody. You don't have to pay for it or sign in or anything. And it answers a ton of questions about that topic. It's not just one particular thing. So the best bet for landlord-tenant issues is what we call legal tactics. It's available fully online as well. I know the court service centers have legal tactics. Many attorneys carry legal tactics in their offices too. You can come into any of the law libraries and we have multiple copies of it because we use it all the time. But it's also fully available online. So, and we'll go over legal tactics, and a lot of the information I have regarding the common issues is from legal tactics. After the best bet, if there is one, we'll have the laws. So here we have the Massachusetts laws for landlord-tenant. If there's federal laws, we'll also go into that. But as I mentioned, a ton of laws regarding this. So we just have the chapter. And if you clicked on that, you would see all the different sections about all the different other, things within landlord-tenant that the laws cover. We'll also pull out specific laws that we think might be important if it's just in a big chapter. So this one regarding victims of domestic violence who are allowed to get their locks changed or end a lease, if that is the situation that they're in. And then my personal favorite, which we call psychologically impacted properties, meaning that a realtor does not have to tell you that the apartment might be haunted, but if you ask, they do have to tell you. And as someone who very much believes in ghosts, I definitely ask whenever I move somewhere, hey, you know what? I might need to know if there's a ghost in here. So that is a law in Massachusetts, and it's here on the landlord-tenant page. So after that, we'll go into regulations. So regulations are just a different kind of law. Instead of going through the House and Senate, they go through the government agencies. So the Department of Public Health has the state sanitary code, which we'll talk about a little bit later on regarding repairs and emergencies. But again, all of these links fully available. You can take a look at any of these laws. You don't have to sign in. You don't have to pay for anything. They're available right there. And then if there's case law, we'll also include that. So even though they're court decisions, these are fully available online. And because case law can be a little more specific, we generally have a little write-up about what that case talks about. So if you are a landlord and your tenant's dog bites somebody, and you're like, oh, geez, am I liable for that? You can take a look at Creatini versus McHugh, and it talks exactly about that situation and what the decision was regarding whether or not that's the landlord's responsibility, the tenant's responsibility, etc. So this is really great to have. After that, if there are popular forums that you need for, in housing court, we do have landlord and tenant forums right before web sources. So for example, these are all the eviction forms that are available. If you have trouble finding these on mass.gov, we are very happy to send you direct links or send you the forms, or take a look even to see if there are sample forms regarding any of these things. And then we'll get into web sources. So because there's so much in landlord-tenant, we organize it by different topics. So you might have seen on the other picture, there was bed bugs, roommates. This one is more kind of general stuff from the Attorney General, MassachusettsLandlords.net. If you're in Boston, specifically information about renting in Boston. So, I mean, it just goes on. And then at the end of that, we have print sources. So those are the only things on this page that you would have to come into the library in order to use. Everything else, you can, if you have a computer and an internet connection, you can access any of this stuff. Okay, so now let's get into legal tactics. So legal tactics is fully available online through masslegalhelp.com. They're a great resource. They're constantly reviewing their information. This says it was reviewed March 2021. I think actually it's been reviewed since I created this presentation. So they do a great job in making sure all of this information is relevant and correct. If you scroll down, you'll see a whole list of chapters, and you'll notice that the chapters are organized by topic, and then there's something called a handout that goes along with that chapter. So I might mention certain documents like statement of condition, or, if you want, samples for different kinds of legal forms, that might be in the handout here. So it goes beyond just showing information. It has a ton of information in legal tactics. And you can see even I was using it before I took the screenshot. I clicked on the handouts for security deposit. So again, we use this a lot. So with those two resources being covered, the law about pages and legal tactics, let's get into some of the common issues. And again, please put any questions that you might have in the chat. I'm more than happy to revisit them a little bit later. So leases, we'll start at the very beginning of the landlord-tenant relationship there when you're signing the lease and you're moving in. So I always recommend that you do get a lease. There is something called Tenant At Will, which we'll talk about in just a second. But having a lease can really help make sure that you are on the same page with your landlord, that there are certain agreements in place, and that you have something to reference if something goes wrong and you can say, nope, this is what we agreed on. So having a lease is always a really good idea. Make sure that if you do have a lease, you read through it, the entire thing. So for me personally, I'm a lawyer's daughter, so I've always been reading all the contracts that I sign whenever I get them. And my friends and I in college were moving in, and we had signed a lease and we had agreed on 2 parking spots for me and my friend who had cars. And when we started moving in, we asked, okay, so there's a bunch of spots, which 2 are ours. Our landlord said, oh no, you only have 1 parking spot. And I knew that wasn't right because I had read the paperwork. I knew we wouldn't have signed a lease. We wouldn't have moved there if we didn't have 2 spots. That was one of our non-negotiables. So I went back to the lease. I found that. I think I sent to him a photo of it. And I said, no, we have 2. You sign this, I sign this. And if he had continued to argue with me, then I would have had grounds to potentially take legal action there because that was in our contract. So it's really, really good to make sure that you know exactly what's in that lease. If English is not your first language, have someone that you trust who speaks English look over the lease for you and explain to you all the different things that are in there because it's so important. There are times when landlords try to put things that are illegal in leases, and I'll mention that in a little bit. But make sure there are certain things that you definitely want in your lease. So you need the date that your lease starts and ends. You need the amount of rent that you're going to pay every month. And then you need the amount of your security deposit, which can be equal to or up to and equal to 1 month's rent. And generally that's what you're going to be charged. And then it should have all the contact information of, your property manager, your landlord, whoever you need to contact regarding stuff. You also can't be charged. There's only certain things you can be charged in a lease. So your first and last month's rent, you can be charged if you ask for a new lock and key. They might just change it, but they can potentially charge you for that. And then again, the security deposit. So you can't be charged things regarding pets. You can't be charged cleaning fees, application fees, things like that. That would be illegal, even if it's in the lease and you sign the lease. So if you don't have a lease, you would be what is referred to as a tenant at will or have a month-to-month tenancy. So those 2 things are the same thing. And this can be a great option in some circumstances to not have a lease. Say you're applying for elder housing or subsidized housing, or you're heading out somewhere and you can't commit to a full year's lease. Maybe you know the landlord, maybe it's your grandpa who's the landlord, So a lot of times you'll be a tenant at will. If you don't sign a full valid lease, then even if you have a written rental agreement, that means that you're still a tenant at will. So that's why it's important that you have the rent amount in your lease, that you have a full term. So it starts in January, it ends in December. You need both of those dates in there. Or if you originally had a lease and then it expired after the first year and your landlord said, you can just stay another year. We don't have to do a whole other lease. You're a tenant at will. And that can be a little dicey because they can change your rent, 6 months into the second year. And they can't do that if you have a lease agreeing on a particular rent for the entire period. So definitely consider, if you can, and if it works for what you're trying to do, having a lease instead of being a tenant at will. All right. So utilities, this is a big topic right now with prices going up. So who pays for utilities? So a landlord generally has to pay hot water and heat unless the lease says that you pay. But you have to have a separate meter. That's really the big thing. any of these utilities you have to have a separate meter to your unit in order for you to be liable for paying the utilities. If the utilities just go for the entire building, then the landlord or property manager is responsible for paying that. So please keep that in mind. You can't have your landlord just deciding, oh, I'm going to charge you $80 this month or whatever. It has to have a separate meter, and you generally will have your own account for that. This is why often you'll see heat and hot water included in your rent in leases, because they don't have a specific meter for your apartment. So they'll put it in your rent that you pay, and they'll pay it off that way. Now, if you have trouble paying the bill, then there are options that you can utilize. A lot of the private electric and gas companies that we have in Massachusetts do have discounts if you receive government assistance. Also, we have a fuel assistance program that you can call. They call it cutely the cold relief heat line, even though hotline would work just as well. But you can call them. And then we also have a link here at the bottom where you can apply online instead of calling for home heating and energy assistance. And again, I'm happy to send this presentation out, so don't scramble to write anything down. I'm very happy to send this to whoever needs it. All right, so before we get into getting repairs made, I wanted to go over when a landlord can enter a dwelling. We get this question a lot, and oftentimes people will have a repair that they need, but they don't want to allow their landlord to enter their apartment, and they have to do that in order to make repairs by law. So if you do have a lease, a landlord can enter your dwelling to inspect the apartment, make repairs, and show the apartment to prospective renters. Obviously, they should give you a heads up. They shouldn't just stop by and inspect the apartment. If you're a tenant at will, same thing, the landlord can enter your dwelling to make repairs, or if they have a court order to do so. But they do have to go to the court in order to have that. They can't just decide to come in. And again, if your lease states any other reason that your landlord can enter your dwelling, that part of your lease is illegal. It doesn't matter if you signed it or not, or you agreed to it. I had a kind of a horrifying question once from a student who had an apartment with her friends, and there was a random room in the apartment that the landlord would just stay in sometimes, and that is not allowed. That is very much illegal. And I think about that person all the time, hoping that they figure that out. But I sent them the law regarding this, and hopefully that landlord is no longer illegally entering their dwelling anymore. But this is important to know for getting repairs made. So before we get into getting repairs made, first things I want to say is you have the right and a legal right to have a decent place to live. There's more information about that right in legal tactics. There's also a law about you have the right to quiet enjoyment of your living area. But generally, you have the right to a decent place to live, and that is supported by the state sanitary code. This is on our landlord and tenant law about page. You can also link to it right over here, and it continues on after this section. So this is regarding drinkable water, hot water, infestation. I think it sets minimum and maximum temperatures. So for example, if you can't get if your apartment is so hot all the time and you can't move the temperature down, I think the maximum temperature in an apartment is 78 degrees. Any hotter than that, and you can ask the landlord to get that repaired. And then I believe the minimum is 68 during the day and 64 at night. So it can't get colder than that either. But all of that information is here in the state sanitary code. And if something is in violation of that, then you can ask your landlord to get repairs made. So generally, the process that we recommend for individuals who want to get a repair made, whether it's something minor or an emergency, is establishing a paper trail. It can be really frustrating to do this and take a long time creating those records, but ultimately, if you do end up taking your landlord to court, it is important to have that paper trail prove all of this is happening, because the landlord is definitely going to have some sort of paper trail to fight anything in court, right? So generally, legal tactics, which is written by lawyers, and we agree that first you have to report the repair or the emergency, and then you have to give your landlord a reasonable amount of time to make repairs. So there is no specific definition of reasonable time. If like your faucet is dripping a little bit, and obviously that's a concern, it's annoying, and it's wasting water, but they might have a couple days to come and get a plumber and fix that for you. Whereas like if your toilet explodes, then reasonable time is very quick. You can't live like that. You can't live in a flooding apartment. So I think that's why they don't really give a definition, because reasonable time for any specific repair kind of changes based on the nature of the repair. Now, if they do not make necessary repairs, legal tactics recommends that you send them a letter in writing describing the repair needed. If they don't respond to that first letter, send them another copy via certified mail. And again, you should be keeping copies for yourself to essablish that paper trail, right? And if they do not respond after that, then you contact your city or town's Board of Health for a complete inspection. And you are very much in your right to get a copy of that inspection report. So if you go through all of that and they still have not fixed that emergency or repair, you do have options. So the options, again, kind of have legal stipulations. So all of these things have to be met in order for you to be able to do whatever the options are, right? So the first one is withhold rent. You are legally allowed to withhold rent if you have appealed to your landlord in writing. Writing is very important. You can't call them. Having some sort of record of it is very important. If you've appealed to your landlord in writing, the Board of Health has inspected the dwelling or unit and found health code violations and notified your landlord, which will be something that they do. And you are current in your rent. So if you're already 2 months behind and then a repair happens, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm withholding rent from, for this now. You have to be current you have to be current in your rent up until the time of this problem in order to legally withhold rent because of the repair. Another option you have is you can deduct up to 4 months of future rent to pay for your repairs yourself. But again, the Board of Health has to have found, that the conditions endanger your health. In their inspection, the landlord receives written notice of all of the violations, and they have a specific amount of time. So the landlord has given 5 days from the date of notice from the Board of Health to begin repairs. And they have, I think, 14 days to substantially complete all necessary repairs. So you have to give them that amount of time by law. If after that 14 days, after all those other things are complete and they still did not fix it, you can deduct up to 4 months of future rent and get it fixed yourself and not pay your landlord. Other options that you have, so you can file a tenant petition for enforcement of the state sanitary code in your housing court. We have that form. We're very happy to send it to you. I don't know if we have samples of completed ones, but I can always double check in our legal databases to see. That picture is the form that we have. And then you can take your landlord to court. So once again, I'm a librarian, not a lawyer. I cannot advise you to take your landlord to court or not, but Legal Tactics has an entire chapter on taking your landlord to court. Generally, tenant-landlord disputes are going to be civil, regardless of whether it's about a repair being made, an eviction, but there are some criminal cases. So if your landlord or tenant like assaulted you or stalked you, or those are criminal activities that can occur between a landlord and tenant. But generally, if you're taking your landlord or tenant to court, it would be a civil case. So if you want to file a civil case, we have the forms. Please let us know. We are happy to send them to you. All right. So regarding security deposits, this is a common question we get a lot too. What can a security deposit be used for? So many people don't realize that landlords can use your security deposit while you're still there. They can use it for unpaid rent. So if you miss a month, they can 100% keep your security deposit, or if they have to repair any damage. So this is beyond reasonable wear and tear, right? So say you had a really fun and crazy party and you woke up the next morning and there's a hole in your wall, right? From maybe you or your guest, or who knows how it happened, right? You're responsible for whatever damage is in the apartment, and the landlord can deduct from your security deposit in order to fix that hole in the wall. As I said, it has to be kind of outstanding damage. They can't use your security deposit to fix stuff that is just reasonable wear and tear. So what does that entail? That is damage that was already there when you moved in. And that's why another reason why it's super fantastic to take photos and take a statement of condition when you first move in. So you can say, hey, you know what, you're charging me for that, but that door was, off its hinge when I moved in. That was already like that before, I moved here. So you can't take my security deposit for that. Again, reasonable wear and tear, like painting. They cannot charge you for painting your apartment. They cannot charge you for, as long as the paint is, if you painted a whole mural and they have to cover that, generally there'll be clauses in your lease saying it has to go back to the condition that it was already in when you moved in, right? So you might have to paint a wall white, but general, like just painting of the entire apartment, or small carpentry repairs, they cannot take out of your security deposit. They cannot repair things that are not documented. So they can't just not tell you about something and take your security deposit. They can't make up stuff, and they can't overcharge you. So say something, it normally costs $100 to fix something and they take $500 from your security deposit. They cannot do that. The way that you can find out that they are doing this incorrectly is that after you move out, if they are taking something from your security deposit, you should receive an itemized list of damages and how much they cost within 30 days of you moving out. If you do not receive that within 30 days, you have the right to take your entire security deposit back, because the landlord has, that statute of limitations has expired there. If they don't return anything and they don't give you an itemized deposit, again, you can potentially take your landlord to court or ask for your security deposit back. So they do have 30 days to assess the damages and, return it to you. So as I said, and I'll probably a broken record here, but take photos of everything. Consider using the statement of condition form, which is in the handouts and legal tactics. It even says here you can go around with your landlord and make sure that you're on the same page regarding the condition of the place, depending on your relationship with the property manager or landlord. If they don't want to do that with you, that's totally fine. You should still do this, and then you can send them a copy of this statement of condition, certified mail, if you want to make sure that you can confirm that they received it. And if something happens down the line, you have that paperwork, you have those photos, you can fight for yourself in that capacity. So that is all regarding what they can use the security deposit for, but what should landlords be doing to keep it for you? So they have to keep a security deposit in a separate bank account. Generally, they should give you a receipt of what bank your security deposit is in. Often that'll be given to you with like the other heaps of papers when you're signing your lease and all of that good stuff. And then they should also pay you regarding your security deposit. That sounds really exciting, but generally if you live somewhere for like 1 year, it might be $1. So the security interest, or the interest, is not particularly high, but you should technically receive some sort of interest for your security deposit when you move out. All right. And then finally, eviction. So before I get into it, please know that there's no longer a moratorium on eviction. Any COVID specific programs are basically no longer happening here in Massachusetts. But we have a ton of resources for you if you do receive a notice to quit. So the eviction process. Generally, the landlord will serve the tenant with a notice to quit. There are 3 types of notices to quit. So there's a 14-day notice. So you have to leave in 2 weeks, and that is for unpaid rent. It can't be for any other reason. It has to be if you owe rent. Generally, if you pay that rent, a lot of landlords will just cancel the notice to quit, and you can continue living there for the rest of your lease. You may receive a 30-day notice. That can be for kind of any other reason. Generally, the landlord would be saying that the tenant is at fault in some way, and that's why they're getting evicted. And then there's also a no notice to quit. So that is effective immediately because the landlord believes that you're doing something illegal in that apartment, and they can issue a immediate notice to quit. So even though you receive a notice to quit, you as a tenant do not need to vacate the apartment in that 14-day, immediately 30-day period. You have the right, if you want to fight the tenancy, the eviction, to do so and to stay in that dwelling while you do so until you get a court order. So say you receive that 30-day notice to quit, you stay past the 30 days, that would start the legal process in housing court. Generally, the landlord will file something along that lines to start the eviction process. There would be a hearing. And then if the judge does agree with the landlord and say, okay, you need to be evicted, the judge's decision is the eviction order. But even with the judge's order that the tenant should be evicted, only a sheriff or constable can remove that person and their belongings from that dwelling. So a landlord, even if they get that eviction order, cannot come in and start hauling your belongings out and everything. It has to be a sheriff or constable. So keep in mind, if you don't follow the notice to quit and you do go through with the legal process, if you go through the legal process with the getting repairs made, it can be a really long, stressful, and expensive process. So it's really up to you if you decide to go through with that or not, but it is not an easy process. And at the end of it, you may not win. So it's very important to make sure that you have all the information and have all the documentation so that you have a really good chance of winning in court and, persisting with that repair or not being evicted or something like that. Here we have a ton of different resources. So eviction for tenants or landlords, kind of how that process works, what a notice to quit looks like, housing court forms, again, if you're answering an eviction notice. And then we have other eviction resources, organizations that will help you out, legal help if you need it from the Eviction Legal Help Project. So there are things that, we can send you in order to fight that eviction. I also wanted to note that if you have a 14-day notice, or if you receive a 14-day notice, but you've applied for rental assistance, which I'll talk to you about in just a second, you cannot be evicted. So that notice to quit is, you've already started the process of trying to get rent or money to pay your rent. So a landlord cannot evict you during that process. So if you do need payment assistance, there are options that you can use, whether you're a tenant, a landlord, or even homeowner. So if you're a tenant or a landlord, you must be, or you may be eligible for RAF. So that's the Residential Assistance for Families in Transition. Say, you're having trouble at your job or something, you lose your job, or you just can't pay that month. You can apply for RAF and have that help in paying your rent. Homeowners can be eligible for assistance through the Homeowner Assistance Fund. And just make sure if you are applying that you submit a complete application. I don't know how many times I have been trying to help people with this and they thought they did, but they did not fully do the application. And they're like, why haven't I heard from anybody? So make sure that you do the entire application so that there's no delay and you don't have to worry about things like, 14-day notices to quit. Again, there's no COVID-related payment assistance, but there are other programs that you can use, and you can apply at housinghelp.mass.gov. All right, so I know that was a lot of information, but again, all of that is available through our Law About pages or the legal tactics book that I talked about. So the things that you really need to remember are get it in writing, whether it's your lease, whether it's notifying your landlord about a repair, make sure you have it in writing. read everything twice. Make sure you completely understand what's in any written agreements. Keep good records, keep copies of anything that you send to your landlord, whether it's repair or court documents. Take photographs if there are repairs or condition issues in your apartment. And remember that you have rights to a decent place to live. So that's basically my spiel. Again, I'm very happy to send out this presentation to anybody. That's why we have kind of these quick links here about the law, the state sanitary code, other resources that I've mentioned. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much. We do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So let me scroll back up.
Sure.
Okay, so there was a question if there's any case law regarding housing discrimination in the screening process.
Yes. Yes, there is. So that could be something. I think we have an entire law about page regarding discrimination and the protected classes in Massachusetts. We could very much find a look for case law regarding discrimination and tenant screening for sure. I don't have any cases off the top of my head, but if you do want to contact the law library, I'm very happy to take a look at that for you. So you can either email us or call us tomorrow. But we do have discrimination related and retaliation related resources that we can pull.
Okay, so the next question is the last month rent deposited with the security deposit.
Nope, that would be it doesn't have to be held in a different account like a security deposit does. But just remember that you already paid that rent, so you don't have to pay it at the end. Yeah, because I think it has to be saved in a separate account because it's supposed to be charged interest. So it wouldn't be able to be kept with other money if it's in an interest account.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, but I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the Ask a Law Librarian program that runs on Thursdays. I'll find a link to put in the chat.
If you're not tired of seeing me on Zoom, we actually have expanded it so that our library out in Springfield is on Tuesdays as well. But we have several Ask a Law Librarian programs. Again, you can email us. You can chat with us actually from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. And then you can Zoom with us. So you would be talking to Nick, the librarian out in Springfield on Tuesdays, and myself on Thursdays. You can come in anytime and have kind of a one-on-one session with us between 1 and 2 p.m. We're just sitting on Zoom and you can pop in there and ask any questions. So again, no advice, but we are very happy to look for information for you or send you direct links, send you forms, send you sample court documents, anything like that. So, and then hopefully we're expanding. I think Lowell might be getting in on the action too. So we'll have even more time to Zoom with the law librarian later on.
Okay, so looks like I have another question. Is it illegal for a prospective landlord to require a deposit to hold an apartment while they screen you and or to charge a fee for this?
I believe that would be considered application fees. So I believe so. I can definitely double check legal tactics regarding that. But that sounds like it would be considered an application fee, which I believe legal tactics said is illegal.
Okay, so I put in the link to the Ask a Law Librarian, specifically like the Tuesday and Thursday one. I did want to let people know if you, so they can email you directly for the slides, but if you registered online, we should have an email for you, but if we don't have an email, I'm not sure how to get the slides to people. Yeah. So I would just say you could email myself or Alexandra and we can get the slides to you.
Yeah, also, and if you just Google Brockton Law Library, the email and contact information will pop up too. So, but yeah, happy to send any of this information, or if you have any questions that you don't want to, broadcast on Zoom right now, feel free to give me a call tomorrow or email the Brockton Law Library tomorrow, and we can definitely look into any questions you might have.
Oh, can they walk into the law library?
Yes. Yes, you can. So we are in the Superior Courthouse, so you will have to go through a metal detector in order to come in. But otherwise, yeah, we are free and open to the public. We have legal databases that you can use. Yeah, you can check out books if you sign up for a library card. Yeah, so we're technically a public library, but you won't find too many novels or anything on our shelves. It's just a lot of law books.
What's required in order to get a library card with your library?
We keep it pretty simple. So as long as you live, work, or go to school in Massachusetts, you can get a law library card. It's not the same, like, as, if you have a Brockton Public Library card, it's not the same card, but it's very easy. We generally do send or mail the library card to your address. PO box is fine. And then the day that you sign up, you can check out one book. And then afterward, you'll receive the card in the mail. That's just us making sure that we have the right address for you. And then you can come in, and I think you can check out like 10 books at a time if you really want to. But you don't need a library card to take a look at any of the print materials that we have. You can come on in, use whatever you want, make copies if you want, print if you want, and then take that with you. So
cool. Do you have to, so are the databases available in the library? Like, are there computers that someone could use? Yes. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
And then
so Brockton is technically one of the smaller ones. If you go to like Fall River or Plymouth, the Plymouth Law Library, there's much more computers. But I think even Brockton being a smaller library, I'm just counting in my head, we have 5 public computers. So yeah, you can take a look. We have some people who aren't doing legal research either. You're welcome to use our computers if we're the closest library to you as well. So just don't do anything weird on them. And yeah, you're very welcome to come in and use our library, our public library computers for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like I'm like a public librarian, and I didn't know a lot about law libraries before the Ask a Law Librarian program started. So
we tend to be kind of hidden away in core buildings, so we don't really have our own space. But yeah, we're trying to get the word out there and partner with our lovely librarians at public libraries to make sure that people know that we exist and we are here to help. So yeah, it's been a long process though, for sure.
Yeah, no, we love being able to promote it. And so if you are like unsure about anything, Ask a Law Librarian is listed on our calendar, the library's calendar, and it's also listed on the library's Facebook events. So if you ever like, I don't know what the link is or whatever, you can just look at those. Or it's also, of course, on the law library page for mass.gov.
Yep. And then I think also there's a law library in Norfolk. So if you don't want to come down to Brockton, you can go to Norfolk. If you find yourself elsewhere in the state, there's going to be law libraries all over the place. I think funnily enough, the only place that does not have a trial court law library is Suffolk County. So I guess they decided between the State Library of Massachusetts and the Social Law Library, they didn't need one. So weirdly enough, the city of Boston does not have one of our law libraries, but yeah, everywhere else has them. Plymouth County is very lucky that they have 2 in Brockton and Plymouth. So, and then I think the only one other than that is Dukes County. They have to get over to the Cape in order to go to a law library. There's sadly no Martha's Vineyard Law Library, but I'll volunteer if they ever make one.
They could totally do like traveling law librarian.
Wouldn't that be fun? Maybe Emily is the law librarian down in Barnstable, and she's wonderful. So maybe I'll give her a call and see if she wants to do like a ferry Ask a Law Librarian.
Oh, in the summer is a good time to volunteer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I have a question. I'm so sorry. I am such a librarian because I'm like, I have questions about library cards. So if you sign up for a library card at the Brockton Law Library, is it good for all of the law libraries in Massachusetts that are?
Yeah, I think technically your home library will be Brockton, but if you drive out to Western Mass and you decide to go, to, let's see, the Hamden Law Library, you can definitely check out books from there. So yeah, I think that because a lot of lawyers are constantly moving around based on where their clients are, and judges actually move around a lot too, their assignments change. So yeah, you can definitely, if you have a law library card, you can use it at any of the locations. You don't have to get a new one for every different law library.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's all my questions. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I was just gonna do like one last call, and or if you have any.
Sure, I'm just taking a look here. I see somebody. I'm just gonna snag your email and put that for me. I can definitely send.
If you send me the slides, I will blanket email it to all the people who are registered. And if you aren't registered, but you still want it, you can just email me or Alex. It's fine. Either way, but yeah, that's, got another question.
Yeah. Is
it illegal for a landlord to deny raft assistance to prospective landlord?
I don't. Do you mean, is it illegal for a landlord to not accept raft assistance from a tenant? I'm not sure I understand.
Yes.
Okay. I don't believe so. I think if you have that, there's no point in the program if a landlord can say, I don't want that kind of money. It's money at the end of the day. So, if you do have raft, I believe that would be, you could go to like the attorney general or something if they refuse to accept your raft.
Is it considered public assistance?
I believe so, but I can definitely double check on that. Off the top of my head, honestly, I'm not entirely sure, but I can definitely double check that and get back to you. So again, I'm not sure who's asking the question, but if you want to email or call the law library tomorrow, I'd be very happy to look into that for you and get you an answer.
Cool. I also, if you're a Randolph resident, there's the Resilient Randolph Fund. I'm not sure, because there are times when there's like, they're waiting for more funding to hit. So yeah, it's not like a guaranteed you can get housing assistance right away. But if you have questions about that, you can reach out to the library and we can help you get signed up, fill out the form and everything. So that's another option for people in Randolph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always good to see what's going on in your community and what local resources are available. So generally, because I give this presentation in different places, so I normally focus on the state stuff, but yeah, always check to see what your town or city has, for sure.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're all questions answered. And this has been great. We really appreciate your time to come talk to us, and would love to have you back to talk about other legal issues and
if
resources.
There's anything that people want, let me know. I could put together a presentation, and so I love connecting, because especially as we have a lot of attorneys and judges come in, but it feels the best when you're helping somebody who's like, the law is so complicated, and it's so overly complicated, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so it's fantastic to be kind of like the person that can connect members of the public to what they need. And then I also wanted to mention, in addition to the law libraries, we're actually technically in the same department. If you need help filling out court forms, there's also the court service centers. Brockton also has one that's in the trial court building as opposed to the superior court building. But there's a few around the Commonwealth as well. And they're kind of like our sister organizations, and they're really, really great, and they can help you fill out court forms and give you they normally have an attorney on staff, so they can't represent you, but they can give you a little more advice than I might be able to. But yeah, we and the court service centers are so happy to be able to connect people to the information that they need, because it can be so stressful. So we are very much here to help, and please, 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 give us a call or email us anytime. So
yeah, I welcome, suggestions for topics and stuff. And yeah, we are definitely excited to do more, and because it's definitely an area that I'm not the most knowledgeable. So it's great to have an expert to bring in. But yeah, okay, so thank you so much. And I think, I'm not sure how soon we'll have a recording, but there will be a recording available that we will make, put online somewhere. And you can, so if you want to come back to refer to anything, that will be awesome. And so we're getting great thank you to you in the chat. So yeah, we appreciate it and can't wait to have you back.
Of course, anytime. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.